People who endured life in the Old West had to be tough. Each day, these determined settlers confronted numerous perils, such as attacks from untamed beasts, famine, illness, natural calamities, and frequently, conflicts with fellow humans. Whether they were cowboys, daring outlaws, Native Americans, or resilient women, they lived amidst the pursuit of wealth, adventure, or simply survival. The era of the Old West undoubtedly epitomized a rugged existence. The sayings originating from this period reflect the shrewd and often ruthless attitudes of its inhabitants, providing insight into the challenges of life during this tumultuous time. Below are renowned quotes from outlaws that could easily fit into a Hollywood screenplay. Number 1. Roy Bean, expressing his philosophy of justice. Roy Bean, known for his infamous maxim, "Hang 'em first, try 'em later," epitomized the wild and lawless era of the American frontier. Bean's colorful entrepreneurial endeavors traced back to his early days as a milkman, where he sought to maximize profits through unscrupulous means. Despite his initial business in milk delivery, Bean's integrity was called into question when he resorted to diluting his product with creek water. Rather than confessing to this deceitful act, he spun a tale blaming the water's presence on the cows themselves, showcasing his knack for manipulation and deception. In 1882, Bean's reputation as a shrewd businessman and a dubious dispenser of justice culminated in the establishment of his notorious saloon courthouse. Situated in Pecos County, Texas, at the behest of the Texas Rangers, this unconventional establishment merged the ambiance of a drinking establishment with the functions of a legal tribunal. However, unlike conventional courthouses, Bean's saloon lacked proper incarceration facilities. Consequently, accused individuals were not confined awaiting trial. Instead, they were subject to Bean's arbitrary rulings, often resolved through the payment of fines directly to him. Bean's judicial proceedings were characterized by a lack of due process, epitomized by his infamous habit of levying fines, equivalent to the exact amount of money found on the accused. This practice underscored Bean's mercenary approach to justice, where the dispensation of legal remedies was intricately tied to financial gain. Notably, Bean's unscrupulous methods extended even to the deceased, as evidenced by his audacious act of fining a deceased individual, highlighting his utter disregard for ethical and legal norms. Embedded within Bean's modus operandi was a brazen disregard for the sanctity of the law and the principles of fairness and impartiality. Instead, his actions reflected a self-serving agenda, driven by a relentless pursuit of personal enrichment and power. In Bean's world, justice was not a noble pursuit guided by moral rectitude. Rather, it was a commodity to be bought and sold, with Bean positioned as the ultimate arbiter of fate. His legacy serves as a cautionary tale, illustrating the perils of unchecked authority and the consequences of allowing personal ambition to supersede principles of justice and equity. In the Old West, Bean's name endures as a symbol of a bygone era, where the line between lawman and outlaw blurred, and justice hung precariously in the balance. Number 2, Sitting Bull called it exactly as he saw it. Sitting Bull, the revered chief and holy man of the Lakota Sioux tribe, famously declared his disdain for white settlers, stating, "I hate all white people. You are thieves and liars. You have taken away our land and made us outcasts." His profound resentment stemmed from the relentless encroachment on his people's territory and the resulting marginalization of the Lakota. In 1883, the Northern Pacific Railroad celebrated its completion with a grand opening ceremony. Sitting Bull was invited as a guest of honor, a gesture meant to symbolize reconciliation. However, the irony of the occasion was palpable. As Sitting Bull addressed the crowd, he chose to speak in his native language, delivering a powerful indictment of the injustices faced by his people. He recounted the deceit and theft perpetrated by the settlers, emphasizing the profound sense of loss and betrayal felt by the Lakota. The audience, unfamiliar with his language, misinterpreted his solemn speech as praise for their accomplishments. They responded with enthusiastic applause, completely unaware of the bitter truth behind his words. This incident underscored the deep cultural and communicative chasm between the Native Americans and the white settlers. Sitting Bull's speech was more than a moment of defiance. It was a poignant reflection of the broader struggles faced by the Native American tribes during the 19th century. The construction of the Northern Pacific Railroad was one of many events symbolizing the westward expansion that systematically dispossessed indigenous peoples of their lands. This expansion was often justified through broken treaties and false promises, leading to a legacy of mistrust and resentment. Sitting Bull's leadership extended beyond his rhetoric. He was a central figure in the resistance against U.S. government policies aimed at subjugating Native Americans. His role in the Battle of the Little Bighorn in 1876, where the combined forces of the Lakota, Northern Cheyenne, and Arapaho tribes defeated Lieutenant Colonel George Custer's troops, cemented his status as a symbol of Native American resistance. Yet, despite his victories, Sitting Bull's later years were marked by continued efforts to advocate for his people's rights amidst relentless pressure from the U.S. government. The stark contrast between the perception of Sitting Bull by the white audience at the railroad ceremony and the reality of his message highlights the enduring miscommunication and misunderstanding that characterized relations between Native Americans and white settlers. In reflecting on Sitting Bull's words and the context in which they were spoken, it becomes clear that his message was a lament for the loss of his people's way of life and a condemnation of the injustices they endured. Number 3. Tom Ketchum on being eager to get on the road to hell. Thomas Blackjack Ketchum, the notorious train robber born on Halloween in 1863, faced his final moments on April 26, 1901, in Clayton, New Mexico. As he stood at the gallows, he quipped, "Can't you hurry this up a bit? I hear they eat dinner in Hades at 12 sharp, and I don't aim to be late." This dark humor reflected his resigned acceptance of his fate and a desire to expedite the grim proceedings. Ketchum's execution was not just a routine hanging, it was fraught with inexperience and error. Clayton had never conducted a hanging before, leaving the lawmen uncertain about the proper procedures. In a misguided attempt to ensure success, the sheriff and his deputies tested the gallows with a 200-pound sandbag. However, they neglected to remove this weight before positioning Ketchum on the trapdoor. The additional weight led to a gruesome mishap. When the lever was pulled, Ketchum was instantly decapitated by the force. This tragic blunder did not immediately end the morbid spectacle. A doctor quickly pronounced Ketchum dead and then sewed his head back onto his body for the burial. This grisly end was not only a shocking moment for those present, but also marked a significant point in legal history. Ketchum remains the only individual ever executed for train robbery in New Mexico. His hanging was conducted under a law that was subsequently declared unconstitutional. Historically, Ketchum's case reflects the harsh realities of frontier justice and the often brutal methods employed to enforce the law. Train robbery was considered a severe crime, disrupting vital transportation and commerce. The railroad companies and the authorities sought to make an example out of those who dared to attack this critical infrastructure. Blackjack Ketchum's life and death encapsulate the perilous and lawless nature of the American West during the late 19th and early 20th centuries. His story is a testament to the lengths to which law enforcement would go to maintain order and the sometimes tragic consequences of their actions. The botched execution in Clayton serves as a grim reminder of the era's rough-and-ready approach to justice, highlighting both the determination to punish wrongdoers and the often flawed execution of that justice. Number 4. Crazy Horse. Made the best of a terrible situation. Crazy Horse, the esteemed Lakota war leader, is famously remembered for his battle cry, "Hoka-hey, today is a good day to die." This declaration of resolve came as he, along with other Native American leaders like Sitting Bull, prepared their warriors for the Battle of the Little Bighorn in June 1876. Known as Custer's Last Stand, this battle marked a pivotal moment in the Plains Indian Wars. Crazy Horse was not only a formidable warrior but also a visionary leader. His exceptional combat skills and strategic acumen made him a key figure in the fight to defend his people's lands and way of life. Prior to the battle, he sought spiritual insight and experienced a vision that assured him of his safety. This vision bolstered his confidence, but his war cry signified a deeper readiness to sacrifice his life, if necessary, to achieve victory. The phrase, "Today is a good day to die," encapsulates a warrior ethos that values honor and bravery over life itself. For Crazy Horse and his followers, the fight against the U.S. Army was not just a battle for survival, but a defense of their cultural heritage and sovereignty. This commitment to their cause was a driving force behind their formidable resistance. The Battle of the Little Bighorn became the most devastating defeat for the U.S. Army during the Plains Indian Wars. The combined forces of the Lakota, Northern Cheyenne, and Arapaho tribes, led by leaders like Crazy Horse, decisively overwhelmed the 7th Cavalry Regiment commanded by Lieutenant Colonel George Armstrong Custer. This victory was significant not only for its immediate tactical success, but also for its symbolic resistance against U.S. expansionism. Historically, Crazy Horse's leadership at the Battle of the Little Bighorn underscores the profound challenges Native American tribes faced during this era. The U.S. government's relentless pursuit of westward expansion often led to violent confrontations, resulting in significant loss and upheaval for indigenous communities. Despite the ultimate outcome of these conflicts, the bravery and strategic brilliance displayed by leaders like Crazy Horse remain a powerful testament to their enduring legacy. In examining Crazy Horse's role and his stirring proclamation, it becomes clear that his actions were driven by a profound sense of duty and an unwavering commitment to his people's freedom. His legacy is one of courage and an unyielding spirit in the face of overwhelming odds, symbolizing the broader struggle of Native American tribes during a tumultuous period of American history. Number 5. Poker, Alice voiced her druthers. Poker Alice once remarked, "At my age, I suppose I should be knitting, but I would rather play poker with 5 or 6 experts than eat." Born Alice Ivers in England, she moved with her family to Virginia during her childhood. Alice's life took a dramatic turn when she married young and was soon widowed after her husband died in a silver mining accident. Faced with financial hardship, Alice turned to gambling as a means of survival. Her skill at the poker table was remarkable, and she amassed over $250,000 throughout her gambling career, which would be equivalent to approximately $6.5 million today. Known for her distinctive persona, Poker Alice was often seen smoking cigars and sipping high-quality Kentucky bourbon, embodying the rebellious spirit of the American West. Alice's ventures were not limited to gambling. She was arrested for operating a brothel, flouting prohibition laws, and allegedly shooting a soldier. Despite these serious charges, the lack of concrete evidence led to her being pardoned at the age of 75. Throughout her life, Alice exemplified the unconventional lifestyles that characterized the American frontier. Her transition from a respectable young woman to a renowned gambler highlights the unpredictable and often perilous nature of life in the Old West. Moreover, Poker Alice's enduring love for gambling until her death at 79 underscores her commitment to a life lived on her own terms. Her legacy is a blend of myth and reality, illustrating the allure of the Wild West and the colorful characters who defined it. In a time when women were often confined to traditional roles, Poker Alice broke the mold, becoming a legend in her own right and leaving an indelible mark on the history of the American frontier. Number 6. Mike Fink lamented. Mike Fink famously exclaimed, "Carpenter, you have spilled the whiskey." Born in Pennsylvania in the 1770s, Fink was a renowned keel boatman, Indian scout, and sharpshooter. His adventurous life was filled with infamous exploits. Fink and his companions often engaged in risky and reckless stunts for entertainment, one of which involved shooting cups of whiskey off each other's heads. On one such occasion, Fink's longtime friend, Carpenter, volunteered to participate. Carpenter placed a cup filled with whiskey on his head, providing a target for Fink's marksmanship. As he prepared to shoot, Fink jestingly advised, "Hold your noddle steady, Carpenter, and don't spill the whiskey, as I shall want some presently." This light-hearted banter turned deadly serious when Fink took his shot, and Carpenter fell, struck fatally in the forehead. Fink's initial reaction was marked by apparent confusion and a cool demeanor, focusing on the lost whiskey rather than the tragic outcome. This nonchalant remark highlights the dangerous and cavalier nature of frontier life, where death and injury were often met with stoicism and dark humor. Historically, figures like Mike Fink were both celebrated and infamous, embodying the wild and untamed spirit of the American frontier. Their stories, often a mix of fact and legend, paint a vivid picture of a time when survival required both skill and a willingness to take extreme risks. Number 7. Billy the Kid refusing undue credit. Billy the Kid once remarked, "At least 200 men have been killed in Lincoln County during the past 3 years, but I did not kill all of them." Born William Henry McCarty around 1860 in New Mexico, Billy the Kid became one of the most infamous outlaws of the American West. Despite his youthful appearance, he was deeply embroiled in violent conflicts from a young age. As a teenager, Billy found himself caught in the tumultuous Lincoln County War, a fierce dispute between rival cattle barons in Lincoln County. Although Billy had no significant personal stake in the feud, he became a notable participant in the conflict. The rivalry culminated in the notorious Battle of Lincoln County, a 5-day shootout that drew national attention. The United States cavalry eventually intervened to restore order, but not before considerable bloodshed had occurred. During this time, Billy the Kid's notoriety grew. He was captured and, while awaiting his fate in jail, he gave an interview to clarify his role in the conflict. Billy acknowledged his involvement in some of the killings but was keen to distance himself from the total death toll. He emphasized that while he had contributed to the violence, he was not solely responsible for all the deaths that occurred. This statement reflects the chaotic and lawless environment of the American frontier during the late 19th century. The Lincoln County War was emblematic of the broader struggles for power and control in the West, where legal authority was often tenuous and personal vendettas could escalate into widespread violence. Billy the Kid's life and actions must be understood within this context of instability and conflict. He was a product of his environment, where survival often required a willingness to engage in ruthless behavior. His story highlights the blurred lines between outlaw and hero in the folklore of the American West. Historically, Billy the Kid has been both vilified and romanticized, his legacy shaped by the mythos of the frontier. His involvement in the Lincoln County War and his subsequent efforts to explain his actions from behind bars provide a glimpse into the complexities of his character and the turbulent world he inhabited. The acknowledgement of his role in the killings, coupled with his denial of sole responsibility, underscores the multifaceted nature of his life as one of America's most legendary outlaws. Number 8. Annie Oakley spoke from her heart. Annie Oakley famously declared, "I ain't afraid to love a man. I ain't afraid to shoot him either." Renowned for her extraordinary shooting skills, Oakley broke the mold for women in her era by excelling in the male-dominated sport of sharpshooting. Her talent and daring performances made her a standout figure in American history. During a time when women were seldom seen in competitive sports, Oakley's prowess with a rifle was nothing short of revolutionary. She frequently performed astonishing and dangerous shooting stunts alongside her husband, Frank E. Butler, who was also a skilled marksman. One of their most famous tricks involved Oakley shooting a cigarette out of Butler's mouth, a feat that required immense precision and trust. Oakley's boldness extended beyond the shooting range. Her statement about not fearing to love or shoot a man captures her fearless spirit and determination to challenge societal norms. Her remarkable career as a sharpshooter not only entertained audiences, but also paved the way for future generations of women to participate in competitive sports and other traditionally male-dominated fields. Historically, Annie Oakley's achievements reflect the broader struggles and triumphs of women seeking equality in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Her success in sharpshooting demonstrated that women could excel in areas previously reserved for men, challenging prevailing gender stereotypes and inspiring countless others. Annie Oakley's legacy is a testament to her incredible skill, unwavering confidence, and the impact she had on changing perceptions of women in sports. Her life and career continue to be celebrated as a symbol of female empowerment and courage. By mastering a skill that demanded both precision and bravery, Oakley proved that talent and determination know no gender boundaries. Number 9. Clay Allison, following the golden rule. Clay Allison once remarked, "I didn't want to send him to hell on an empty stomach." This statement came after a deadly encounter on a cold January day in 1874. Allison, a notorious gunfighter, went to racehorses with Chunk Colbert, a fellow gunslinger and longtime adversary. Despite knowing he was likely on Colbert's hit list, Allison maintained a facade of camaraderie. The men stopped at a local inn to share a meal, continuing their pretense of friendship. During dinner, Colbert saw an opportunity to strike. He drew his pistol, intending to kill Allison. However, in his haste, Colbert's gun barrel hit the table, causing a brief delay. This split second was all Allison needed to draw his own weapon and fire a fatal shot into Colbert's head. When later questioned about why he accepted a dinner invitation from a man who clearly wanted him dead, Allison's grim yet courteous reply highlighted his complex character. The quote reflects both a dark sense of humor and a peculiar code of honor that governed interactions among gunfighters of the Old West. Allison's willingness to dine with an enemy, despite the mortal danger, illustrates the peculiar etiquette that could exist even among those who lived by the gun. Historically, Clay Allison was known for his volatile temperament and lethal skills. His life was a series of violent confrontations, yet he adhered to a personal code that sometimes bordered on the chivalrous. The incident with Colbert exemplifies the paradoxical nature of frontier justice, where mortal enemies could share a meal before a deadly showdown. In deeper analysis, this episode sheds light on the complexities of honor and retribution in the American West. The norms and values of gunfighters like Allison were shaped by a harsh environment where survival often hinged on both cunning and a readiness to resort to violence. His legacy, marked by such vivid anecdotes, continues to captivate and provide a window into the tumultuous and often contradictory world of the Wild West. Number 10. Calamity. Jane proved that image is everything. Calamity Jane once proclaimed, "I figure if a girl wants to be a legend, she should just go ahead and be one." Born Martha Jane Canary in 1856, she carved out a life rich in adventure and mystery. The tales of Calamity Jane depict her as an orphaned, sharpshooting, cross-dressing, smoking, heavy drinking, hunting, exploring, cursing, and wild woman. The real Martha Jane Canary remains an enigma due to the unverifiable nature of most stories about her. This ambiguity is a testament to the blend of fact and fiction that often surrounds historical figures from this era. One prominent example of this uncertainty is her alleged relationship with Wild Bill Hickok. Some accounts suggest they were married and even had a child together, while others insist they met only once, and briefly, at that. The varying narratives reflect the difficulty in separating truth from myth in her story. Despite the lack of concrete evidence, what is undeniable is Jane's determination to forge her own legend. She embraced a lifestyle that defied the conventions of her time, embodying the spirit of independence and resilience that came to define the folklore of the American frontier. Calamity Jane's decision to become a legend in her own right is indicative of her desire to control her narrative. By adopting a persona that was both audacious and unconventional, she ensured that her story would endure, even if the details were often exaggerated or fictionalized. Her legacy, therefore, is less about precise historical accuracy and more about the enduring impact of her larger-than-life persona. Historically, figures like Calamity Jane were pivotal in shaping the mythology of the Wild West. Their stories, whether wholly accurate or not, capture the imagination and provide a window into the rugged and untamed spirit of the era. Calamity Jane's life reflects the broader themes of survival, rebellion, and the quest for identity in a rapidly changing world. Her ability to navigate and thrive in a male-dominated environment speaks to her remarkable resilience and adaptability. Through her actions and the stories that surround her, Calamity Jane remains a symbol of the indomitable spirit that defined the Wild West, embodying the essence of legendary folklore. Number 11. John Wesley Hardin, downplaying his notoriety. John Wesley Hardin once remarked, "They say I killed 6 or 7 men for snoring. It ain't true. I only killed 1 man for snoring." Among all the notorious gunslingers of the Wild West, Hardin is perhaps the most infamous for the number of lives he claimed. Born to a Methodist minister who named him after the founder of Methodism, John Wesley Hardin defied his religious upbringing by becoming one of the deadliest outlaws of his time, allegedly killing over 40 men. Hardin began his violent career at the age of 14. His life was marked by continuous travel and a trail of bodies, as he constantly evaded law enforcement. By the time he was 18, Hardin's notoriety had only grown. One incident that cemented his fearsome reputation occurred in a Kansas hotel. Hardin, drunk and accompanied by a friend, checked in for the night. In the adjacent room, a man named John Cougar was snoring loudly. Hardin, frustrated by the noise, shouted at Cougar to roll over. When the snoring persisted, Hardin and his companion fired several shots through the wall, killing Cougar and ending the disturbance permanently. His reaction to a minor annoyance with lethal force demonstrates the perilous environment of the American frontier, where life was often cheap and justice swift and brutal. Hardin's legacy is a stark reminder of the extreme lawlessness that characterized the Old West. Despite his upbringing in a religious household, Hardin chose a path of relentless violence. His story is one of stark contrasts, a preacher's son turned notorious outlaw who lived by the gun and died by it as well. Historical accounts of John Wesley Hardin reveal the complexities and contradictions of frontier life. His ability to evade capture for so long speaks to both his cunning and the inefficiencies of the law enforcement of the time. Yet, his eventual downfall underscores the inevitability of justice, catching up with even the most elusive outlaws. In a world where truth is often stranger than fiction, the quotes from the Old West stand as testament to the grit, wit, and audacity of those who roamed the frontier. From the sharp tongue of Annie Oakley to the chilling words of John Wesley Hardin, these quotes are so hardtack they sound made up, but rest assured, they're as real as the dusty trails they echo through. So, if you enjoyed this journey through the rugged landscapes and untamed spirit of the Old West, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more fascinating insights and stories from bygone eras. Yeehaw!